So now I added the primary colors, so I have yellow, blue, and red. And you can also, they're evenly spaced if you count them. So if I go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, that is where the primaries are located. Next, we're going to get the secondaries. So that's orange, green, and violet. And what's great already is because we have the yellow and the red, it already tells us what we need to mix to get to that orange color. And for example, yellow and blue, it tells us what to do. We have to mix those two colors to get green. Other, red and blue, tells us again we mix together to get the violet. Then after we get the secondaries, the tertiaries are the last ones, and they also will tell us what to do to mix. So again, we're starting with primary colors first, then secondary, and then tertiary. All right, let's go ahead and start with orange. So now this is where we actually are gonna make our secondary colors and all the rest for the entire class session. So we know that yellow and red are going to make orange. Yellow we know is a very translucent color, so we have to be careful with that. We don't want to add too less yellow because it'll be overpowering. So I'm going to go ahead and use another little area. I'm going to get a little bit of amount just because it's going to take a whole pie slice. I'm just adding a little bit of red right now. And we're just going to mix a little bit at a time to just build it up. We also are going to be getting an orange red too, so I have to, or red orange, so I have to be careful that I don't make it too red. I'm going to grab a little bit more and just start mixing. This is to kind of eyeballing what looks good to you. Think about like a pumpkin orange or so forth. If you do have a mixer, so meaning if you have a palette knife, you can mix like that. As you can tell, I'm mixing directly onto my with my brush. Okay, so I'm thinking that's looking good. The only thing too is I don't want to get too orange or too yellow orange where then it looks like it goes in this area. So we're trying to get in between the two. So I'm going to add a little bit more. Okay, so now it's looking a little bit more orangey. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and add the orange into here. And again, I want to make sure it looks different than yellow and red because when we get to the tertiary colors, they will be a little bit more closer to those two colors mixed. Again, I'm not mixing water into this, so this is just the pure integrity of the paint. All right, so here is now my orange. I'm going to do the same thing that you guys seen that I did yellow with. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of white. You want to do this pie slice in one sitting because if you come back and redo this, the paint may dry already and you may have to mix another batch and it may not look the same as it was originally. Again, you don't need much color because they're small little shapes we're working with. A flat brush is really good to work with because it gets those corners so easily, which is really helpful. And I just want to make sure that my white, which is the tint, looks different than the original hue. Also, I want to make sure that it's pretty consistent with the other ones I already created, so it's not too much white added or too less white added. And to see a slight jump. Now, because I already have white on my brush and I have the orange mixed, I'm just gonna add a little bit of black again and even just dab it, so I'm just trying to get very light. Again, I should take off even more than that. And we'll just use this small little area here and I'll start mixing. If it's looking too grayed out, I may lose the color. Okay, then I'm gonna go ahead and apply it. And right now, again, it looks kind of similar to the white, the tint. So I'm gonna add a little bit more. So it's helpful, again, having everything still wet. I can just go back and add and cover that area. You are welcome to add more grays into yours, the tints, tones, and shades. Just make sure again that it is consistent. So then you would add gray to each of the pieces, a lot of it, each of the colors. Kind of makes a really neat brown color. I'm going a little bit light on mine. I could add way more gray into it, but these already have just a little bit of gray, so I'm trying to be consistent with my whole ring. And then I'm just making sure I get the corners. Again, you can tape them off if you'd like. Just remember, if you do use tape, you want to put it on your pant leg first just to loosen the adhesive because it can rip the piece of paper. Okay, now last I'm going to go ahead and do the black. So this is the part where I clean my brush, or if you have a different brush, you're welcome to use a different brush. I'm going to go ahead and use one that's already clean. And I'm just going to get what I have left of the orange that I created, add a little bit of black. First I'm going to dab it over and just mix the rest that I have left. This will make a really nice pretty burnt orange. And then I'm just going to add it. Now as I'm looking at it, it still looks a little similar to the tint or the tone. So we're going to add a little bit more darker value to it. I just don't want to lose the color where then it only looks like black. And again, if that does happen, it's really easy to fix. You just keep painting over it. If it's too hard to remove, meaning that the color is too dark and you can't paint over it because it's already a dark value, then what you can use is use white paint. It acts like sort of cover up or white out, and that'll cover the area. And then you just start from scratch again, so all nice and fresh color mixture. Okay, so here now is the black added to it. So it has like a brown tone. All right, going now to my next one. I'm gonna clean my brush off. Okay. So green, again, all we mix is yellow and blue. Yellow, remember, is a really translucent color, so we have to be careful with that. We don't want to have too much blue in it. So I still have a good amount of color. If for some reason you can't finish this all in one setting, because it does take time to finish an entire color wheel, I really suggest, if you do have a Tupperware, an old Tupperware, to go ahead and wet a cloth underneath it, or wet tissue. Like in this case, this is paper towels. If I just wet it under the sink, and then I put it inside of my Tupperware so it keeps a moist environment. Then I put this in my Tupperware and I seal it. Then this will allow the paint to stay for a couple of weeks, which is really nice. Just know when you do open up the lid, if it is several days, there are strong fumes because all the paint's just accumulated in this small little contained space. So just be careful not to breathe that in as you open. Another way is just to try to finish it all in one sitting. You could always try to scoop it back in to your actual paint tubes, but there is a small area to kind of pull that in, so it doesn't always work. And of course, last thing is you just throw it out. It's just nice to conserve paint if possible. Okay, so when you guys are working, everybody purchased, I know, different primary colors. Some did a little bit darker yellow, some did lighter yellow, some did lighter blue, darker blue, and that's what's gonna look so beautiful when we see everybody's color wheel, because everyone will have something different. Okay, so I'm adding some yellows, and again, I'm using yellow and blue. I'm gonna add a little bit more yellow. And I kind of want to get a grass green sort of idea. I just don't want it to look too blue, and I don't want it to look too yellow, because remember, our tertiary will have yellow green and also blue green. So as I keep going with that, it looks like that's kind of a nice color. We can add just a little bit more. Again, I'm not using too much of it because it will go far in our small space that we have. Okay, so my second color is green. And if for some reason when you start painting this on the color wheel and say you want to go a little bit more of yellow or more blue, just go ahead and add that. And it's really easy again because the medium is still wet. I'm just making sure I got all the corners down just so it's a clean presentation. If you do get paint that starts to get on the outside, which sometimes is common, that can happen, what you can do is you can just cut out the circle again and paste it onto a clean sheet of paper. It could even be your drawing paper, so you don't have to use your mixed media, and that can work. Okay, so here's our green that we got. Next, we're going to go ahead and keep our same green, but add a little bit of white into it. So I'm just using a little portion of what I mixed. It really helps if you have a plate because you can just move all over the place and it works well. Also, if you have a Ziploc bag, that can work. Any sort of wax paper is good. Okay, and I'm getting my second color. This is so nice. It's really nice to always get those tints, that pastel look. They have just a really soothing look to them. If you're not happy with your secondary colors that you're making, like your orange, green, and violet, then that just tells you that maybe you would purchase in the future, if you wanted to continue this, a different primary color. So maybe I would have more of a lighter yellow or a darker blue or something if I wasn't happy, say, with my green. Okay, so here is my tint. Now I'm going to do my tone. So same process like we've been doing. I already have my white and my green. I'm going to add a little bit of black. Remember, I only get a small, just at the very corner of the brush. And I'm going to go ahead and start mixing it. If you mix too much, again, no problem. You just go back and add again. It's really great how paint can be forgiving. If for some reason an entire pie slice gets confused or doesn't work out, just put just put white paint over it, let it dry, and that can create like a new canvas, so to speak, or a new sheet of paper. I'm gonna add a little bit more black into this. And if you notice, I go very lightly. I don't try to do too much in my mixture. So sometimes I have to eyeball it and then I go back and add more. I just know that not too much paint needs to be mixed to achieve what we need to create in these small little spaces. So again, notice I'm not using any water for this. It's really nice to glide on the paper and create that original hue or original color tone. Okay, so here's my tone. So again, you have the hue, tints are the white, tones are the grays, and shades are the blacks. So same thing again, I'm gonna go ahead and clean my brush. In this case, I'm gonna go ahead and just use a different brush. Make sure I have it cleaned off. When you are cleaning your brushes too, I'm just gonna scoot this out of the way for a moment. I recommend to move the brush like this. Don't press hard into the surface or onto the bottom because it starts to make the bristles kind of blare out on each side. They're not really strong. So you just wanna make sure that you, almost as if you're painting a wall, and then even to kind of allow it to dab on top to just pull off any medium that's left. Okay, so we're on our last one here for green in terms of the shade. So remember, I already have my green here and it's gonna dry soon. There's not much left. So again, I'm doing it all in one sitting. I'm adding just a little bit of black. You can even see that. Let's do a little more. And again, black is very overpowering. I can lose the color so quickly. If that happens, you just mix more. This is actually a really relaxing process because you are painting in shapes and you're learning to mix with different colors and how they work for you. So a lot of it, again, is you're going to eyeball kind of what looks different than the others. You just want to make sure there's a step and you don't want to lose the color. So if these look all black, that means that I went too dark. So it's best to just do a little bit of black at first and then put it on the color wheel, see how it's going, and if you need to add more or adjust. Okay, so here is again now my black. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and pause this video. I'll finish with the violet and then I will show you guys again getting the secondary colors, the tertiary colors. The most challenging ones are probably the yellow, so we'll talk about that when we get back. Okay, thank you, you guys. You have a great time working on your color wheels.